Hey guys, welcome back to Antlers Outdoors. Today I'm going to be teaching you how you can find more deer antlers. Alright, so the first thing you want to know is when to actually look. And a lot of people get this messed up because it's early December, early January, and they get really excited about the upcoming shed season, and they're going on social media and they're seeing other people posting antler pictures. They just want to get out in the woods and start looking, but that can actually be really harmful to your future shed season, and I'll tell you why. But first, you have to know your deer and know your area. There are three main things that make a buck shed. The first is genetics, the second is nutrition, and the third is how harsh the winter is. So if you're in an area where there's a lot of agricultural, like a lot of corn and soybeans, those bucks are most likely going to hold their antlers longer. But I did say that genetics has a lot to do with it. So if the buck has genetics where it's going to drop early, it will most likely drop early, even if there is a lot of nutrition. So once you determine all these three factors, it's up to you to decide if you want to go in or not. Going back to what I said about if you go in too early, it can destroy your entire year. What I mean by that is if you keep on going in there, you're going to push those deer. You're going to move them off the property. They're going to go to the neighbors. They're going to go somewhere else, and you're most likely not going to find their sheds or as many sheds as you could have found. Also, when you decide to go shed hunting, you're going to want to take a look at the weather. So what you really want is a cloudy day with slight rain. That rain is going to make those antlers pop, almost glow against that dark background of the leaves, and it really makes it a lot easier to look that way. Also, if you decide to go on a day that's not cloudy, that's fine too. Just if it's really sunny, when you don't want to walk facing the sun, that's going to make a huge glare on the grass in front of you, and you're not going to be able to see very well. If you are walking into the sun, make sure you turn around every once in a while and look behind you. I've walked past antlers that way, and I've turned around and found them again. So you're going to want to walk with the sun at your back if you can, but if you can't, just make sure you turn around. So one last factor that I'd like to add in is squirrels. So you got to know the squirrel population. If you have a lot of squirrels, I recommend you doing some preseason squirrel hunting. Go out there with your .22, have a little bit of fun, shoot some squirrels. But, oftentimes a lot of guys, they'll do everything right. They'll wait. They'll go out there after all the antlers have dropped, and they get out there and they have nothing left but a bunch of chewed up junk. And oftentimes I've seen antlers that are completely chewed down to nothing. Squirrels will do a lot of damage, so take that in consideration as well. The next thing I want to talk about is where to actually look. And, again, this depends on your deer in your area. You have to look into that. You have to know where the deer are in the winter, because where the deer spend most of their time in the winter is different than when they spend their time in the summer, and oftentimes in the hunting season as well. So you're going to want to do a little bit of scouting. So I do this on all the properties that I have permission to. I go in there earlier, and there's snow on the ground. I get to see where the deer are going, because once that snow's gone, you're not going to be able to see where the deer have been spending all their time, because underneath the snow, you're going to be seeing old trails that were used during the rut, during the summer. They're all going to look fresh and muddy because they've been underneath the snow the whole time. So you're going to want to go in and you're going to want to see where those deer have been spending their time. And this is especially true with cornfields and stuff like that. When you got a real big cornfield, it's tough to cover it all, and oftentimes a lot of it is left untouched throughout the entire winter. So if you go in there when there's still snow on the ground and do some scouting, you can see where those deer have been spending their time in the field, and you can pinpoint it a lot easier than if you were to go out there without snow. Alright, so now that you did some scouting, we're going to want to look into some key spots where you're actually going to look when you go shed hunting. So the first is going to be south-facing slopes. South-facing slopes are the slopes that are most exposed to the sun. The deer will bed up there because it's warmer than anywhere else. And you're going to be spending a lot more time up there in those bedding areas than, say, on the north side. But do not exclude the north sides, especially if there's food at the bottom, or it leads to another bedding area. There's going to be trails that are going to those different locations. And oftentimes, if the wind is not right for that south-facing slope, especially bucks will bed on the north side even if it's colder. I've found plenty of beds on the north side and plenty of sheds as well. So you don't want to skip out on those because you'll be losing sheds. So the next place you're going to want to look is along fence lines and creek crossings, trees that have fallen over, places where the bucks are going to have to jump over and jolt when they hit the ground. That'll oftentimes cause the antler to fall off. And another place you want to look is fallen trees that are still alive or just recently fallen over. So they still got the buds on them. The deer will come, they'll eat those buds. And I've found antlers inside of those trees where the bucks have been in there. They've gotten their antlers tangled up, and it falls off in the tree. And another place where you really want to hone in on is, of course, food. They're going to be spending a lot of their time, especially in the winter, eating. And what you really want to look on is the edges. They'll be working those edges a lot, especially they'll be bedding on the edges of food. You'll find a lot of antlers that way. The last place you really want to look on is, of course, bedding areas. And bedding areas usually consist of really thick stuff or plateaus or ledges that overlook stuff. They're flat and they shelf down. The deer love those. They can see down the hill, and if they have the right wind, they can have the wind coming down behind them and they can smell what's coming up from behind them. Oftentimes bedding areas will be in the really thick, nasty stuff that, you don't want to go in, but the deer do. If you want to find sheds, you have to go in there. If there aren't any deer sign going in there, don't bother with it. But if there is, you definitely want to check it out. If you're looking in a high wind concentrated area, you're going to want to look in pines if there are any. You're going to want to look if there's a fallen tree with grass grown up over it. You're going to want to look behind those because oftentimes there's beds in there. I found lots of sheds inside of pine trees and inside of those little windbreaks and stuff that the deer, they really like. All right, and lastly, just bring some buddies and get out there and have some fun. The more people you bring along, the higher the chances of finding something. It's just a good time to get out there and look for some stuff, have some good times with your friends, and if anything, just get some exercise. All right, guys, that's it for this video. If you found this video helpful, make sure to leave a like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments below what you guys do to find sheds. As always, thanks for watching, and good luck shed hunting.